going rapidly down. Services, worse and worse. Robotization. It's almost impossible to talk with human beings if you ask for something. It's always push 1, push 2, push 3 and things of that kind. In other words, a kind of dehumanization. At the same time, I noticed that what we used to call services are less and less and less. At the same time, and this was pointed out very clearly by the chairperson Lapierre of National Rifle Association, because he's of course arguing in favor of having arms. It's becoming an increasingly different and dangerous society. So much violence. Now, he uses that violence as an argument for having guns, of course. That is his business, literally speaking too. But there is no doubt that the violence is increasing. In other words, it's a sad story of a society suffering from Atomie, Destructuration, sort of loosening up its structure, and Anomie, suffering from Deculturation, the culture no longer having its grip on it. The situation is serious, very, very serious. You know, demoralization goes one step further than deculturation. Deculturation is also called anomie, and it means that you are no longer steered by norms. You are sort of pretty much doing what you want to do. If there is something to be stolen, steal it. If somebody stands in your way, kill him, and so on. But demoralization means that you no longer believe in the future. The future is disappearing. And you can say that the deculturation I was just talking about, you do it because you think by doing it, you will pave the way into a future, at least for yourself. Maybe for your family, maybe for your village, maybe for more than that, but at least for yourself. Demoralization, you don't even believe in that. Now, the obvious reaction to demoralization: alcoholism, drugs, suicide. All three of them are increasing in the United States of America. To the point that you can actually talk about a collective suicide, the United States committing suicide. Well, needless to say, there are forces in the United States that don't see it that way. And they are in command and they benefit enormously. And more particularly, they must have applied an enormous pressure on Trump. I remember New York Times had an editorial about a flip-flop leader and pointing out something like 10 changes he had made. And I would imagine, although I was not a fly on the wall, which I would have loved to be, that he was told in no uncertain terms that here are the conditions for you to become president. So one condition, you have said that Russia is good and you can cooperate with them, with Putin. And as a footnote, I think he's still doing it. But we'll see what happens. You have said that Russia is bad. You have been skeptical about China as a competitor and things of that kind. China is good. So from China bad to China good, from Russia good to Russia bad. So there are the major changes. Now, of course, they had a carrot hanging in front of him, and that would be the final vote needed to make him president. And that to confirm his presidency. And he got it. When I talk about deculturation, I talk about the power that culture has on people. For instance, let us say simply that killing is wrong, thou shalt not kill. Well, there is more and more killing, and there is more and more stealing, thou shalt not steal. So, and when I talk about destructuration, we are living in a society here in the United States of more and more isolated individuals, and they're not connecting to each other. You find communities dissolving. And for that reason, there are also efforts to reconstitute communities. And here I may plug in what I think would be the best idea, and as a matter of fact, that is also happening. And that is students and others, youth, going to the countryside, starting cooperative farming. I wish it were more cooperative, but starting farming. In other words, you can say there is a kind of effort to invigorate the enormous and very fertile US countryside. But the cities are, if you will, nests of violence, and a very sad thing to witness. You see, the fall of the US empire has been confirmed already a long time ago. There are a couple of details left, and we can come back to that immediately. But I had no precise prediction for what would happen to the US. I actually had two possibilities, US blossoming or US fascism. And in the book, there is a sort of dialogue between two ladies who are, one of them stands in favor of US blossoming and one of them in favor of US fascism. And that dialogue is what we are living in today. But it looks like the US fascism has the upper hand. So that's the sad point about it. And in a sense, that was the second prediction. It was not a prediction because I just said one or the other. But it is tilting in that direction. Let me come back a second to the US empire. Let us just remind our viewers of the definition of an empire. In an empire you have client states, and those client states do much of the job for you, including killing inconvenient people. Now, a big part of the US empire was in Latin America, of course. And by and large, Washington could rely upon, if you take Latin America, Caribbean, you have 35 states altogether, quite a lot, and they could rely upon 34 of them. It was only Cuba. Cuba was a difficult one, and they tried their best, everything they could, including invasion, as you know, the Bay of Pigs invasion, to crush the regime, and it didn't work. And the regime was capable of changing itself from two more Vietnams, from changing from a violent strategy to a very peaceful, if you will, medical-oriented strategy. And the Cuban approach to public health and private health, for that matter, individual health, was demanded all over Latin America. Now, that was a change, a basic change. But there was no corresponding basic change in the US, unfortunately. So the empire then had to change. And Trump is introducing something new. He's getting a new client state. And it's obviously Saudi Arabia. He has lost the others. Obama had to do the killing himself. And that was done partly by drones and, much more importantly, by sharpshooters who were imported into countries where CIA had identified somebody who was anti-American, as they called it. And they disguised their rifles as hunting guns and were called by CIA and were killing the person when CIA told, this is the guy coming out for lunch now, and killing at a range of 800 to 1,200 meters. And this was happening, as far as one can understand, in 137 countries, organized by Obama. An enormous operation, but very individualized. And the media have only caught the point about the drones. And of course the drones can kill some so-called militants, but they also kill a lot of other people. So this was pinpointed, in a sense. Now, whether that operation is still going on, I'm not in a capacity to say. I only know that the Lieutenant General, I think was his rank, in charge of it, when he was giving an interview about it some years ago, he said, well, this involves us in a lot of traveling because we're going to the precise place. We are traveling a lot these days by plane with the so-called hunting guns.